Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. And now that the 2020 NHL free agent frenzy has kind of reached a stalemate, as we are just about a week through having a lot of players sign, the majority of the bigger fish besides Mike Hoffman and Evgeny Danilov, for the most part, they've all been signed. We all know where they went. Why not start talking about them now and really breaking down every signing for the most part that we have seen in this year's free agency? So that's what I'll be discussing with you today, a breakdown and a grading using Tiermaker. And if you know Tiermaker from other YouTubers and hockey YouTubers, then you'll probably enjoy this one as well. And if you guys end up enjoying this kind of format, because I've never done it this way before on the site, which I'll show you momentarily, make sure to hit that like button, of course, if you end up liking me doing this through Tiermaker, and if you'd like to see me do more content and say more gradings and more rankings through this kind of site going forward. And if so, give me ideas in the comments below for hockey related things that you'd like to see me discuss using this kind of format. But without further ado, let's get right into this video. Alright guys, as you can see, I'm on tiermaker.com and I have my tiers set up from rankings A through F, the grading scale. So basically, if I have them in A, then I absolutely love that signing. And even if, say, the term or the money is a little bit too much, it's worth it in the end, given the player exactly. And once you get to B and C, it means that they're very solid signings. They could either be really solid but not quite A material, or just solid in their own right and maybe are lacking, say, term, or the value of the player to the contract isn't exactly there, for instance. And then when you get to D and F, it's signings that just don't make as much sense to me personally, or for logical and analytical reasons as to why the team chose that player. So I have 40 players here that I'm going to be discussing with you in this video. These were all players that were signed thus far in this year's free agency. The only players I really left out of this video that were signed were ones that are basically going to be playing in the AHL or have little to no ice time, in my opinion at least, going into next season. So these are all the more important players that we have seen signed thus far, in my personal opinion, and I think for the most part we can agree. But let's start off this video with the biggest fish that hit free agency to just be signed, and Alex Petrangelo. Now, when it comes to Petro, I think it is safe to say for the Vegas Golden Knights, that 7-year, $8.8 million contract, yes, it's a lot, and yes, it will hurt them long term, but they're in a win-now stage, and they got exactly the kind of guy they were looking for on that right side of the fence. One of the best defensemen in the entire NHL. You can't go wrong. I absolutely love that signing for the Vegas Golden Knights. All right, next up, we have Tyson from the Toronto Maple Leafs, now going to the Edmonton Oilers on a one-year deal, a prove-it deal, really, at a cap at $3.75 million. I absolutely love this signing for the Oilers, and I'm going to put it right at B. I would have it at B+. So it's not quite there at A for me, just because when I look at the other moves the Oilers made this offseason, not acquiring really a goaltender, just re-signing Smith when they could have, say, used that cap space. I still love the signing for Barrie regardless, but there were some underlying factors that didn't lead me to get it to A. But it's definitely a B+ in my opinion out of that B ranking. So I love that for Barrie. He'll be the power play quarterback for the Edmonton Oilers next season, especially with Clifford most likely being out with injury. And he'll be the power play quarterback with the two best players in the entire NHL, and Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. So you can't go wrong there. I absolutely love that deal for the Oilers. Next up, we have Zach Bogo going to the Toronto Maple Leafs on a one-year deal. This deal is worth $1 million as well. I really like it. I think that's a C. Bogosian's in the latter years of his career. He really stepped up, in my opinion, with Tampa. Analytically speaking, it won't really tell you that, but I thought he was a solid role player with Tampa in that defense. And on that right side, it does not hurt Toronto by any means to add more depth there. I thought it was a very fine move. He brings some grit and physicality to that lineup as well, which is desperately needed for a team trying to have a deep playoff run. It's a low risk, high reward type situation for Toronto, and if, say, it doesn't pan out, they can always bury him in the AHL. Just a one-year, $1 million deal. Next up, we have Mark Boricki, and I apologize if I'm saying his name wrong, from the Ottawa Senators, going to the Nashville Predators on a 2-year deal, I believe, with a AAV of just around $1 million. $2 million, I should say. I really like this deal for Predators so much that I'm actually putting it at B level. Mark really stood out this past season for the Ottawa Senators, and he's been a very underrated defenseman in the league, and I think he will immediately bring depth to this Nashville Predators team that actually struggled defensively last season, which is something they really aren't known for. But between their offense and defense, everything really didn't go right for Nashville last year. I absolutely love this signing for the Nashville Predators. I think it'll be a very underrated one, and I think Preds fans will fall in love with Mark sooner rather than later, given the type of game that he plays. I think it'll fit Nashville's system greatly. I really like that signing for them. Next up, we have TJ Brody to the Toronto Maple Leafs, and yeah, that's a B level as well. Yes, I know that is a little bit big in term. I believe it's $5 million AAV for 4 years, but Brody, he is a left-handed defenseman, but he plays that right side, and that's huge for the Maple Leafs that are looking for help on that right side, regardless of the fact that he's left-handed, and he's a very solid two-way defenseman, one of the better and more underappreciated defensemen in the league, has very good underlying and analytical numbers as well. I really like that, and he can provide offense as well. There's no dying. He had a down year this past year, but so did virtually everyone that Flames line up on an offensive stance. So I really like that move for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They get a crucial top 4 defenseman that will really help round out their defense and all-around game going to next year. Next up, we have Kyle Clifford on a 2-year deal to the St. Louis Blues with the AAV of $1 million. This signing, I'm going to put really at D just because it's not terrible. It does help bring more veteran experience and some championships on his resume. But when it comes to Kyle Clifford, you know what you're getting. You're really not getting much point production. You know, he's in the latter years of his career as well. Will just be your 4th-line grinder, enforcer, if you will. And yes, he will be a fan favorite sooner rather than later as well, given the type of game that he plays. And I think it will balance out well with St. Louis. You can't expect too much there, and I still thought that, yes, I know that they only gave up $2 million, but at the same time, maybe they could have used that money elsewhere. But that's just my personal opinion. I really think they have a great bottom 6 as it is. So it was one of those moves that I understand it, but at the same time, I really don't feel that it's too necessary. Next up, we have Nick Cousins, and Nick Cousins is a very interesting player as well, kind of a controversial one, depending on who you talk to. He ended up having a really kind of an up and down year these past couple years. He's bounced around with a couple of teams in the NHL, and I apologize, just bear with me 1 second, guys. Cousins signed a 2-year deal at an AAV of $1.5 million with the Predators, and he will be in a depth role as well. I don't hate the deal. I don't love it either. It's another one of those where, yes, you're adding depth, so that never hurts, but I would put that probably at D level as well. I think the Preds could have lived without the likes of Cousins. Yes, he does have some offensive potential. He's nothing crazy. He really is a bottom 6 guy between that 3rd and 4th line that can contribute. But nonetheless, not a terrible signing by any means, but nothing drastic at the same time. The Preds could have lived without Nick Cousins, in my opinion, but not a terrible signing. Next up, we have Corey Crawford on a 2-year deal with a high AAV of $4 million. This deal I do like for the New Jersey Devils quite a bit, but I will say I'm not a lover of the contract, just given the fact that Crawford will probably be the backup. Maybe they'll split time between 50-50. This is a tough one. I guess I'm leaning more towards B, given that veteran experience, but if I had to say, I would say it'd be B-, so it's really not far off from going to C. But Crawford, he has the Stanley Cup championships on his resume. We all know this. He'll be a great veteran leader and give some great advice to Mackenzie Blackwood, who's surely a very young and promising goaltender in the NHL. I like that deal a lot. I'm very curious to see how Crawford does in New Jersey and if he can stay healthy. That's usually the biggest issue when it comes to him, really throughout the majority of his career. But nonetheless, a very strong signing for New Jersey. I think they gave up a little bit more than I would have liked to see them give up when it comes to cap. Given the flat cap, I know that they have plenty of cap space right now, but that cap will eat up sooner rather than later, I assure you, especially depending on whatever else moves they make this offseason. But nonetheless, a very strong signing. You really can't go wrong there bringing in a veteran like himself. But next up, we have Cody Eakin going to the Buffalo Sabres. And Eakin's a tough situation for me. I think we could put Eakin in C, but he really does get close to D, in my opinion. They get him at a capita of just over $2 million. I believe it is $2.25 million for 2 years, so not a terrible cap hit by any means. Cody Eakin, you shouldn't expect really too much offensive production in his career anymore. You know, his best years are definitely behind him, I would say, but he comes into a depth role with the Buffalo Sabres in this bottom 6. They need depth forwards, no question. They lost plenty in free agency this year, and really a lot of guys walk, including the likes of Johan Larsson, among others. So I think this was a fine signing for Buffalo. They're going to contend and try to make playoffs next year. So Cody Eakin in that bottom 6 shouldn't be too terrible, but I have heard plenty of controversies regarding his game as a whole, especially during his time in Vegas. So it does make you wonder how much can he contribute exactly to Buffalo, but for his sake and for Buffalo's, I hope nothing but the best. But next up, we have Jesper Fast going to the Carolina Hurricanes on a 3-year deal with an AAV of $2 million. This is easily, in my opinion, if not an A, that's definitely a B. I would definitely have this higher B+. And yes, I'm a Rangers fan. Might be a little biased there, but Jesper Fast is a grinder. He's a perfect glue guy in your lineup. I can't say enough good things about the guy. I was really upset to see the Rangers not re-sign him, but I know that they didn't want to go past 2 years with him, given their depth on the winger front, especially on their right wing. So it made sense for both parties to really go their separate ways. Fast is going to be a great guy in that top 9 for the Carolina Hurricanes. Can play in that top 6, no problem, especially if injuries occur. He can fill in right away. Really love that sign for Carolina. They're in a win now stage, and you need guys like Jesper Fast in that locker room. For the past 5 years, he won the Player Award for the New York Rangers, just to give you an idea of just how much of a team MVP he really is in the locker room and on the ice. Can't say enough good things about the guy, and I wish him nothing but the best. But next up, we have Thomas Greiss for the Detroit Red Wings. The Red Wings snagged him, and I like this signing a lot. I do. I'm going to put this right at B level. This signing, you really couldn't go wrong with the likes of Greiss. I really can't say enough good things. You know, the Edmonton Oilers were interested in Greiss, and he ended up going to Detroit. Stevie Y has had a great offseason thus far, and this was no different. He has a cap hit, 3.6 mil for 2 years, which isn't terrible at all. I just want to double check that it's 3.6 mil. Yes, I do believe it's 3.6 mil for 2 years, so not bad at all. And Greiss is a guy that's going to come in and help that goaltending situation with him and Bernier. Not a bad tandem for a team really in a full rebuild. I like that move a lot, and that's definitely B level in my opinion. Next up, we have Radko Gudas, and this is a more interesting deal in my opinion. He has a cap at 2.5 mil for an additional 3 years with the Florida Panthers. This signing, I have to be perfectly honest, I don't love it. I'm going to go with C here. You can make the argument for D. I think just when it comes to Gudas, getting him at 2.5 mil isn't bad by any means. I don't love the term, though. 3 years to Gudas is something that I personally wouldn't consider. He had a very strong year last year, and when it comes to Gudas' overall game, I don't know exactly how much he brings to the Florida Panthers, but at the same time, they desperately do need defensive help, and Gudas should be a low-risk, high-reward type situation. They didn't have to cough up too much for him. I thought maybe they could cough up less than 2.5 mil, because I know he basically had a deal in place with the Toronto Maple Leafs, so it leaves you wondering how much would he have taken to play with the Leafs versus the Panthers. Things to consider. But nonetheless, I think Gudas was a fine signing, nothing flashy, right along the same lines as Bogosian. I have him in the C column. Now let's get to Eric Gustafson for the Philadelphia Flyers. I like this move a lot. Gustafson, I'm going to put in the B column because yes, Gustafson almost looks like somewhat of a one-hit wonder at this point in his career. He had 60-plus points with the Chicago Blackhawks just a couple years ago. This year, however, didn't even crack 40 points between splitting time between the Blackhawks and the Flames, so it leaves you scratching your head a little bit if you ask me. But nonetheless, it wasn't a bad deal by any means. He's on a $3 million deal for only 1 year, so very cheap, and I really like this for the Flyers. You know, Matt Niskanen just retired, so he's basically going to come in as a replacement. I think the Flyers have more moves that they're going to make this offseason, but Gustafson is going to help out that offense as a strong two-way defenseman. His defensive game isn't fantastic by any means, but I don't think it'll be too much of a liability, and they get him on a fairly cheap contract. And next up, we have Taylor Hall, who was the most coveted free agent besides the likes of Alexander Petrangelo. And he easily, like Petrangelo, ironically, goes in the A column because he goes on a 1-year deal at a AAV of 8 mil. I just love this deal for Buffalo so much. This changes their whole direction for the remainder of the offseason going into next season. This signing could very well ensure that Jack Eichel does not request a trade or want to go anywhere anytime soon, especially if the two click and play together next season. Taylor Hall, the former Hart Trophy winner, is coming off of a significant injury just around 1.5 years, 2 years ago, but nonetheless, this is huge for him. It changes scenery. I really think he's going to bode well with Jack Eichel in that Buffalo Sabres offense, and look, they finally had 2 scoring lines, very strong scoring lines in that top 6. Now they have Eric Stahl at the center position, going to be the 2C. Dylan Cousins looks like he will be on the come up, possibly be in the line next season. So there are some things to be excited about in Buffalo, which I'm really happy to see for Sabres fans, and I hope for their sake and Hall's sake, things really work out, and hopefully Buffalo can get back to the playoffs. And I believe it's been 8+ years now since the last time they were there, so I hope for their sake everything goes good with that relationship. But I love the signing. Henrik Lundquist to the Washington Capitals on a cap at 1.5 mil for 1 year. That is an easy A. With Braden Holtby walking, them not wanting to commit to him long term by any means, they bring in Henrik Lundquist, their biggest enemy for the long longest time over these past 15 years. Hank, of course, you know how I feel about him as a Rangers fan. You've seen my tribute video to him basically when the Rangers bought him out. I absolutely love Hank. He's the reason why I'm talking to you guys today for the most part. I'm really excited to see how he will do with the Capitals. Regardless of them being a Rangers rival, I will be supporting him every which way. And they get a great leader in the locker room, and he can help split time and really compete for that #1 spot with Samsonov. Samsonov should be that #1 guy, but Hank is still competitive. He wants to win now. He's going to give it all he possibly has. Will give some great insight to Samsonov, where even if he plays with them for 1 year, the impact he could have on Samsonov and younger players in that locker room could affect them for the entirety of their careers. So this is only a great situation. There's literally no risk in this. I love this for the Capitals in this win now stage. They got quite the leader in the locker room and a better person overall. Can't say enough good things. A++++, in my opinion, for Henrik Lundquist going to the Capitals. Next up, we had Braden Holtby to the Vancouver Canucks on a 2-year deal, which was a very surprising deal. I don't think many people expected this deal to happen. I sure as heck didn't when it first came out, and after looking at things and him only signing a bridge deal as well with Vancouver, I really like this deal. I think Vancouver has not had a good offseason by any means, but between getting the likes of Holtby and also just getting Nate Schmidt in the trade for a salary dump with Vegas, things could be worse for the Vancouver Canucks. I like this sign a lot, giving some help for Thatcher Demko. So this really is between A and B in my opinion. I feel like I should almost go the likes of A. I really like that signing for Vancouver. Yes, maybe they could have used that cap space a little bit more, but nonetheless, this was not a bad signing by any means. And now they get a guy that has leadership and is going to be a great fill-in for Jacob Markstrom. At a cap hit of $4.3 million for 2 years, you really can't go wrong with a guy who has a great resume and is trying to bounce back in his NHL career. You get him way below market value. So Holtby, I'm really going to put in A. This can be controversial between A and B, honestly, and I understand arguments for both, but I think I got to go with A in this column. Yes, Vancouver has some contractual issues, no question, especially with players in that bottom 6, but nonetheless, Holtby was probably the best option of a replacement they could have gone with losing the likes of Markstrom to Calgary. Next up, we have Matthias Yanmark going to the Dallas Stars rival in the Chicago Blackhawks on a 1-year deal. I like this move a lot for the Blackhawks. I really do, to the point where I'm going to even have it in the B column. Yes, you may say it's a slight. I wouldn't even say that. He only got paid $2.25 million for 1 year. This was really a strong deal for the Hawks, adding depth to that offense. I don't know what identity they're looking for, and I don't think the veterans do either, and Taves and Kane. That's why they were so upset with Brandon Saad being dealt again. But I like this move a lot for the Blackhawks. I really can't complain. I think it's a B- for me. Yanmark is a very solid top 9 winner. When healthy, he can really provide some great things in that offense. So I like that. I think that's a guy that Dallas is going to regret losing, in my personal opinion. Yanmark still has plenty to give. I think that was a very solid sign for the Blackhawks. Next up, we have probably the most controversial and the funniest signing of this offseason. And as a Rangers fan, I can tell you personally, Jack Johnson to the New York Rangers on a 1-year deal at $1 million was baffling. Like, if there's a way to put this below F, that's what we do. I feel I almost made this F column just for Jack Johnson and himself. This is nothing personal, but we all know Jack Johnson has been the laughingstock, basically, of the NHL, and really the idea of what exactly a defenseman should be from an eye test and an analytical basis. It's like these are the two people where if, say, you're a big analytics guy or you're a big eye test guy, I think we can all come together and say that Jack Johnson is not a great defenseman, to say the least. And that signing was really baffling by the Rangers. They gave the reasoning as to why with his connection to Jacques Martin and John Davidson, of course, during his time in Columbus, but I don't love it. I gotta be honest. I really hope for the Rangers' sake he's a 7th defenseman, but I do have a feeling he's going to get some fairly significant playing time, and if that is the case, then that's why he's considered in this video. So Johnson, I have an F, and I'm gonna probably leave it at that. Next up, we have Torrey Krug, the biggest replacement one team could ask for in losing a star defenseman in Alex Petrangelo. They're like, you know what, we'll take Torrey Krug, no problem. We can't bring in Petrangelo because of the bonuses. No worry, we'll bring in Krug, literally the second best option available. They bring in Krug on a 7-year deal at a cap at a $6.5 million AAV. This move, They got him below market value. I have to put him in A. You can make the argument for B as well, but that was a perfect replacement for Petrangelo. I can't say enough good things about it. Even with him being a left-handed defenseman, Krug has been such a sound two-way defenseman in the NHL since he first arrived here, and I can't believe he's been in the league for as long as he has already. I feel like he scored his first NHL goal on Henrik Lundquist like it was yesterday. That makes me feel old, and I'm not even old, but time really does fly by when you're having fun, right? But Krug, a very strong two-way defenseman, was so coveted. Boston couldn't keep him. We all know this, so he goes to the team that he just recently lost to just over a year ago in the Stanley Cup Finals in the St. Louis Blues. Absolutely love that deal for them, and they get an absolute stud. Next up, we have Johan Larsson going to the Arizona Coyotes. The Coyotes, I think this is a fine signing. I'm going to put it in the C column. Coyotes, we really shouldn't expect them to do anything. They have literally no money that they're working with currently, and they have a new GM in Armstrong, so we'll see what happens there. Larsson, I don't even know the exact number that he received, because when I was looking up TSN, all the signings, it didn't show up, so I just didn't get a chance. So if you want to let me know in the comments below how much money exactly he's making, let me know. I'm assuming between 1 and 2 mil, but nonetheless, a fine signing for Arizona just to add a depth guy in Larsson, really to fill the spot of Brad Richardson that they lost in free agency. So can't go wrong. Larsson's a very sound, more defensively minded forward. You can't go wrong there. Shouldn't expect too much offense for him, and we'll see how he does in the desert. Going from Buffalo to the desert, that can't hurt him, right? He'll probably enjoy the weather. Next up, we have Jacob Markstrom, the biggest goaltending fish in free agency, and he goes to, yes, the Calgary Flames on a big deal, a deal that really no one else was able to match. And Markstrom signs a 6-year, $6 million deal. I love this deal. I'm going to put it in B. It just misses C, and my personal, it just misses A for me because of the term. Given Markstrom's age, I think I really have it right at B+ to A-. Markstrom has been a very sound goaltender these past couple years, really coming into his own with the Vancouver Canucks. Was arguably a Vezina candidate to many in the NHL last year, and Calgary finally got their guy. They finally got a number 1 to pair him with David Rick. Good things are going to happen. I love that signing for Calgary. They finally get that number 1. And Markstrom, I think, still has more of an edge to his game. I think he has yet to show his full potential, and I'm really excited to see what he does in Calgary. Love that signing for them, even given the length. I don't think it's going to hurt them too much in the end. Patrick Marlowe, next at a $700K cap hit, I believe, for 1 year, goes back to San Jose. I feel like for this signing, you just got to put it around C. There's nothing bad about him. Marlowe going back to San Jose, and Joe Thornton may very well go to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Maybe he has by the time I upload this video. I don't know, but it is funny how these two maybe won't rekindle that relationship for a final year. But I have a feeling Thornton might, because I know that Marlowe is not far away from passing Gordie Howe in most games played. So interesting to see Marlowe, a legend. We all know this by now. He's an absolute Iron Man in the NHL. Can't hurt to go back to San Jose for another year. Regardless how he's used in that lineup in that bottom 6, more than likely, he'll do just fine. San Jose, I don't have much expectations for them next year. So Marlowe, the hometown guy, been there his entire life. You can't go wrong. Next up, we have John Merrill going to the Detroit Red Wings on a 1-year deal at a cap at $925K. Strong signing. I'm putting it all the way at B. I know it may not seem like a big deal, but Detroit in this complete rebuild, if you will, they cannot go wrong with getting Merrill with experience and really getting him for nothing. I love that connection between Yzerman getting another veteran on that defense. It doesn't hurt at all. Help the younger guys in the lineup. Merrill isn't a great defenseman by any means, but we know what the Detroit Red Wings currently are as a team and an organization. They're on the right path. I like that signing a lot. Just a depth move. Nothing crazy. Nothing bad. I put it right at B. Next up, we have Tyler Pitlik going to the Arizona Coyotes. And this is a signing where I'm kind of looming between C and B. C and D, I should say. I can put it around C. It's just another depth signing for the Arizona Coyotes. They're not going to do anything drastic. They're working with whatever money they currently have, which really is not a lot by any means. They literally have no cap space, and it is not looking great for them. But they have a cap. He has a cap hit of 1.75 mil for 2 years. Can't go wrong. Another depth forward who has been solid at times with the Philadelphia Flyers, and in my opinion, it's just an average signing. Nothing more than that. Next up, we have Brad Richardson. Richardson to the Predators. I like this signing. I honestly do. I think this is such a low risk, high reward signing for the Predators. I'm going to put it all the way at B. And the reason why I say is, yes, I know Richardson really hasn't had much scoring or anything, but he's a very sound two-way defenseman, centerman in the NHL. He's great on that penalty kill as well. He was great during his time with the Kings and with the Coyotes. He brings that great presence in the locker room, and during playoffs, he can be pivotal, and the Preds are still in a win-now stage. They made some very strong depth moves. I really like him and the signing of Mark Boricki as well. You can't go wrong. I like this move a lot for the Preds. A low risk, high reward. Solid. Next up, we have Bobby Ryan to the Detroit Red Wings, and this, it's an A. It's an absolute A. Bobby Ryan, we all know the story with him. I really appreciate him because no one's asking him to be so open about his alcohol abuse and those issues there. And I never would have expected it to be with a player for as long as it has. Just hearing him in interviews explain the amount of calorie intake he was taking on a day-by-day basis with wine, with other alcohols, and seeing how that is all out of his diet now. He feels the best he's ever been as a hockey player. I'm really excited to see Bobby Ryan. They get him on a 1-year deal of a cap at $1 million. Literally no risk, high reward, a guy who is a great character and is so open-minded, and that is fantastic for going to a team like the Detroit Red Wings with so much youth. They're in a complete rebuild. I love this signing by Steve Yzerman. You cannot go wrong here. Ryan could very well thrive in a top 6 role in Detroit and possibly increase his stock a little bit more to get, say, one more payday before he really reaches his retirement. So I like this move a lot. I expect Bobby Ryan to have a bounce back year and really help out those young guns in the lineup going forward. Next up, we have Justin Schultz on a 2-year deal, I believe with a cap hit of $4 million. I don't like this signing much at all. I'm actually putting it at D. I'm sorry, Capitals fans. I don't think Justin Schultz is worthy of a $4 million cap hit by any means. Schultz really has not looked great these past couple years. He's been dealing with injuries. We all know this, but he isn't getting any younger, and I don't think he'll be terrible for the Capitals, but I don't love that signing at all, especially the fact that it's a 2-year deal with an AAV of $4 million. That's a lot of cap to give up during this flat cap era for a defenseman that really is not worth $4 million AAV at this point in time, in my personal opinion. Next up, though, we have Kevin Shanker going to the Anaheim Ducks at a cap of $3.9 million for 3 years. Now, this signing is not bad at all, but I'm going to put it at C, and here's why. This is a signing where, if I'm the Anaheim Ducks, they're another team that I have no clue what their identity is. They're lingering between, yes, they're not going to be a playoff team, but they're not going to be abysmal by any means. They're going to be right in the middle. My assumption will be they'll probably be 10 to 12 points out of a playoff spot next year. But we'll see what happens. Yes, they want to address that right side defense. That's why I thought it was a good sign for Shanker. Shanker, I think this will be the last really big contract of his career, and he was clearly looking for more than money, because if he didn't, he would sign with Tampa again, given the great run he had with them, and they want to keep him. But I think Shanker, very solid defenseman in the NHL, so really rejuvenized his career after having down years with the Rangers. As a Ranger fan, I can tell you, it was all in part given his injuries that he was dealing with. It was just an unfortunate situation. But Kevin Shanker to Anaheim, you can't go wrong, but at the same time, I feel that they could have utilized that cap space a little bit better, just because they aren't committing to doing really a full rebuild. They're more so in a retool, which I'm not sure how much I love that for the Ducks, given the fact that they have little to no identity currently. I have no clue what direction they are really going forward, but we will see. Next up, we have Wayne Simmonds, the Wayne train to the Toronto Maple Leafs. I love this signing. That's a B for me. I know I have so many Bs in here. I apologize, but Wayne train, you got to bring that presence. And I think what separates him a little bit more than other players is he still can provide some offense. Yes, it won't be drastic by any means. His best years are behind him. We all know this. But on a 1-year deal of $1 million, and that bomb 6 on the third or fourth line, and he can be on that power play. Realize that too. I'm not sure if Toronto would use him, but I know during his peak years with the Philadelphia Flyers, he was a great net front presence on the power play. I can tell he's a Rangers fan. He scored more goals in front of the net than I can even count. If Simmonds can rekindle some of that offensive touch, which he surely will, being around the likes of the offensive talent in that Toronto top 6, if he is on, say, the second power play, for instance, as that net from presence, you can't go wrong. Love that signing, bringing grit to the lineup that actually has some skill, isn't really as much of a pylon or a placeholder like Kyle Clifford per se. Nothing against Clifford, but there's no doubting that Simmonds does have more offensive potential. Next up, we have Craig Smith to the Boston Bruins. I love this signing, and I actually love this signing to the extent where it may be a little bit more than the average person, but yes, I know it's 3 years, but I love it. I absolutely love it. I think that is a perfect signing for Boston. They're still in this win now stage. 3 years may be a little too much, but they're only giving up 3.1 mil for Craig Smith, who's a bona fide 20-plus goal scorer. I think his game fits perfectly with what Boston is asking for. A great depth move for them in their top 9. They're dealing with injuries. They're going to be without Pastrnak and Marchand to start the season, most likely. So you can have Smith in your top 6, and he'll be a great placeholder. I'm really excited to see how he does in Boston. I think he has that edge to a game. He's a very solid two-way winner that is going to fit greatly in that offense for the Boston Bruins. I think he really checks off all the boxes on the type of winger that they would be looking for. Next up, we have Troy Stetcher, the young defenseman from the Vancouver Canucks, going to the Detroit Red Wings. Another solid signing by Steve Yzerman, and that goes in the B column for me. Stetcher didn't stay with the Vancouver Canucks. We know this. He's a young defenseman that still has some promise. Nothing crazy, but I think he adds more defensive depth, and maybe we'll see what happens. Maybe he can have some of his better years with the Detroit Red Wings. You know, he still has time to grow. I like that move a lot for Detroit, though, really helping balance, say, the youth and the veteran leadership in the locker room. And Stetcher, he is more on the youth side of things, obviously, so it can't hurt. Be around more of the younger guys, and I think it was quite the steal to get Stetcher away from Vancouver as well. From everything that I've seen with Stetcher, he's nothing crazy on that blue line, but he surely is a solid pickup. And Stetcher signed on a 2-year, $1.7 million AAV deal, so you really can't go wrong. I like that deal a lot for Stevie Y and the Detroit Red Wings. Now to Cam Talbot to the Minnesota Wild, and this one may be a little controversial, and I'm sorry, but I got to put this one in the D column, and I'm going to explain myself to the best of my abilities. And, you know, I think you can make the argument for C. I think you really can. But I think I'm going to put him for D for a couple things. One, he's on a 3-year deal when he's on the wrong side of 30. And 2, he's also at a cap hit of 3.67 mil. Not a terrible deal by any means, but Talbot is not a consistent goaltender like he once was during his time with the Rangers. I can tell you personally, I love Talbot. Nothing against him personally, obviously. He was solid in the beginning with Edmonton, then things really trickled down. He rekindled his career with Calgary the second halfway through this past season and in playoffs. But nonetheless, I think when it comes to Talbot, not a bad sign. But Minnesota, I don't like the moves that they're doing at all. They're another team similar to Anaheim and others where they really don't have an identity. They're trying to compete next year instead of really going more so in a rebuild, because they did great at the draft. But I don't like a lot of these moves that they're making, between the move of acquiring Nick Bonino and the draft picks for Luke Kunin. I didn't like that deal either. I thought, why would he get rid of a young guy in Luke like that for a veteran, just for basically the experience in that bottom 6 presence? I don't love the moves Minnesota's doing. I think they're just staying mediocre. And yes, I know that they're bringing Kirill Kaprizov, so that really may take them over the edge. They still have a very strong defense. We all know this. Their offense has more depth now, but just because it has more depth doesn't mean that's anything crazy. Because out of Kaprizov and Fiala, I don't know how much there is there. If Marco Rossi makes a team in his rookie year, then maybe we have something. But Talbot won't be a terrible goaltender by any means, but I think, especially given the options at the time, I really believe that the Minnesota Wild could have done better. If they're really trying to commit to staying relevant and competing again next year, I think they definitely had better options at the time than the likes of Cam Talbot. But that's my personal opinion. It's nothing against him personally at all. It's not a terrible signing, but I think they could have done better. Next up, we have the likes of Chris Tanev going from the Vancouver Canucks to the Calgary Flames. I like this deal a lot. I think I'm going to put it in C column. I think it just misses B for me, given the term. But overall, a very solid sign for Calgary to help that defense, no question. Vancouver Canucks fans will tell you personally just how much of the heart and soul he was for the Canucks and how great he is in his own end. It's just about staying healthy. He has stayed healthy for over this past year, which you really can't go wrong in. But I think when it comes to Tanev, you know, he has a cap of 4.3 mil for 4 years. That is where I kind of feel a little iffy about the deal. I don't love the term there, especially given his plagued injury past. I hope he stays healthy if he can. Then, hey, we got something there. He'll be great in playoffs. I think it's a very solid signing, but I am left with some question marks where how is this going to look long term for Tanev, given the type player that he is and the type of game and overall play that he brings. I hope that he can be reliable and be healthy going forward, but it is still up in the air a little bit in my opinion. and that is a decent cap at 4.3 mil for the defenseman, but it is around his range for the most part, so I will give them that. Not a bad sign at all. I just don't love it. I feel neutral for the most part when it comes to Tanev going to Calgary. Tyler Toffoli to the Montreal Canadiens. Beautiful deal. Absolutely beautiful deal. One of the best deals in free agency, in my opinion. Going to the Montreal Canadiens at a cap of 4.25 mil for 4 years. Beautiful. Can't say enough good things. There's no restrictions on that contract. I do believe there's no movement clause, no trade clauses. So if Bergevin gets tired of that contract in a couple of years, if they end up getting cap crunch, and he can ship that away if he wants to, no problem. So Toffoli, they get him under market value and they get him for term. I like that move a lot. That really helps solidify that offense. This is the deepest Montreal team I've ever seen, surely, in my young life. I'm only 20 years old, so take that into account. But this is probably the best looking Habs team I've seen in a while, depth wise. And I'm really excited to see how they do next season going forward. They have a very strong thing going on between youth and veteran leadership as well. I really like what Bergevin has done this offseason. A lot of great moves, especially addressing those wings between him and Anderson, just extending Gallagher too. I can't say enough good things. Kyle Turris to the Edmonton Oilers. I really like that deal a lot. Turris is another one where I'm going to probably go the lengths and put him in A. It may be stretching a little bit, but they get Turris for really not much at all. And Turris could kind of rekindle some of his play back to his time during Ottawa and a change of scenery with the Edmonton Oilers. Edmonton has needed depth in that offense, no question. Turris gets bought out of his contract of $6 million for a couple more years with the Predators. And then he goes to... Then he goes to the Edmonton Oilers, and I think this is going to benefit them great. Turris will bring that great top 9 presence for the center position. And only at a cap at 1.65 mil for 2 years, you can't go wrong. I think that's a very solid move for Edmonton. I think Edmonton hasn't had a great offseason by any means, but not a terrible one either. I think Turris was definitely one of the highlights and really could benefit them going forward. I think they've needed depth. We know this, and Turris is definitely going to help out. Next up, we have Carter Verhaeghe going to the Florida Panthers. So staying in the state of Florida, but going to the Panthers on a 2-year deal and at a cap hit of $1 million. A solid signing, nothing crazy. I'm going to put it at C. Verhaeghe really has been a fringe NHL player in his young career. We'll see if he will surely probably get more playing time with the Panthers. We're losing some key forward free agents and most likely Danov and Hoffman this offseason. So if that's the case, he will have a shot to compete in that top 9. So we'll see what happens there. But Verhaeghe, a solid winner. We'll see if he can take his game to that next step with the Panthers. Next up, we have Jimmy Vesey. And Jimmy Vesey, another signing where you really can't go wrong. And I gotta put VC in the B column. The Leafs get him for only $900K for 1 year, and VC, he has the potential to be a 15 tops 20-point goal scorer still in his career. I think he can rekindle that with the Leafs playing, say, gain some more significant minutes. He probably won't. He will probably be, of course, a bottom 6 winner, but VC, given the opportunity, can help. He's really a solid winner when he has good guys around him. So if he's by any means playing with the likes of Tavares or Matthews at times, which probably won't be often, but should that present itself, VC can probably help out there. Low risk, high reward situation for the Leafs. They need guys on cheap contracts, and VC was a very solid signing. Next up, we have Vladislav Nemestikov for the Detroit Red Wings. Another solid signing as well. For Nemestikov, I got to put in the B column. A very solid signing. Nothing bad about it at all. Rekindling his relationship with Stevie Y, who I believe originally drafted him by the Tampa Bay Lightning, so can't go wrong there. Nemestikov is on a 2-year deal at a 2-year $2 million AAV. Solid deal. He's really been kind of a journeyman since he was dealt to the New York Rangers a couple years ago from Tampa, but nonetheless, Nemestikov, I like him. He will help bring some balance and some veteran leadership at this point in his career to the Detroit Red Wings throughout this rebuild. Next up, we have Lucas Wallmark to the Chicago Blackhawks. Solid signing. I'm going to put it in C column. Nothing crazy, but not a bad move by any means by Chicago. Just adding more depth of winners. Adding $950K cap hit for 1 year. You can't go wrong. Wallmark will be in the top 9. And maybe he'll thrive with some of the offensive big guns that they have in Chicago. So we'll see. And then to cap off this video, we have Alexander Wenberg going to the Panthers. And this is B column for me. I like this move a lot for the Panthers. Wenberg definitely needed a change of scenery. Things have not been working out for quite a bit in Columbus under John Tortorella. And Wenberg changed his scenery, rekindling his relationship with Bill Zito, who's originally from Columbus, now is the new GM. GM of the Florida Panthers. Obviously, they got Marcus Nudavara, also a former CBJ player. But I like this move a lot. Wennberg, a sound two-way defenseman. Maybe he can get his offensive game going. They needed center depth for the Florida Panthers. They still need more, in my opinion. But this definitely helps him in that top 9 and can help them on the penalty kill. If he can rekindle some of that offense, maybe get some more goal scoring going or that playmaking ability, then they're going to benefit greatly. I don't see anything wrong in that signing by any means for the Florida Panthers. But I think that's going to cap off this video, guys. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, how do you feel about this? Who do you think are the best signings that we have seen in this year's free agency thus far? And who do you think are the worst? As always, guys, let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. It means a lot. And make sure to check out my previous videos. I discussed the New York Rangers, their RFA situation, the Tampa Bay Lightning, their RFA situation, guys, that they currently see on the trading block and can possibly be dealt. Make sure to check out those videos. Make sure to check out my signing videos from all the free agent signs, the bigger ones that we've seen in free agency and trades thus far this NHL offseason. Stay tuned for more videos ahead regarding free agency, bigger signs like Hoffman and Danoff, for example, and trades that are surely to come. So make sure to check them all out and hit that like and subscribe button again if you enjoy this kind of hockey content. Hit that like button. Also, as I mentioned earlier, if you do like this kind of tier maker format, make sure to let me know in the comments and what kind of ideas would you like to see me going forward hockey related in tier maker. I would love to hear it. But thank you all so much, guys. It means a ton. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll be back real soon.